Okay, hello everyone. My name is Allison. We are here at the Creators Table. We're going to be talking about the creation of horror experiences, immersive horror today. And we have four creators of some awesome experiences here that I'm going to have introduce themselves, and then we will talk a little bit tonight about controversial themes and taboo themes within immersive horror.
Okay, perfect. I guess I'll start. My name is Blayne Adams. I am the creator of STAG, an immersive horror experiment. We are located in Saginaw, Michigan. We've been running since 2016.
My name is Justin Brink. I'm the creator of Miasma, based in Chicago, though we've done shows in other cities, running since 2014.
My name is Joshua Simon Lake. I'm the creative director of the Blackheart Collective. We've been running remote immersive horror experiences for the last 9 months, and we're located everywhere.
Nice. My name is Matt Hester. I'm one of the co-creators of Fear Experiment. We are located in central Illinois.
Fantastic. And thanks to all of you for coming to talk with us some today. I wanted to start with Blayne here because I was reading about STAG today, and right there on STAG's Facebook description, you actually have that this is an experience that is focused on taboo adult topics, and you're focused to the extent that you even had a show titled Perversion at one point, right?
Yes, we had our 2017 show was titled Perversion. And something that I really enjoy is pushing people out of their comfort zones and kind of letting them attain like a new level of courage. And we utilize taboo themes that, you know, some of us human beings have experienced in our lives and some people haven't. And I think that sometimes the general public or like immersive theater enthusiasts, they kind of like a taste of that life or of those taboo things in human lives, that some of us experience, but in like a safe environment, and then you can leave afterwards. So yeah, we've done several taboo topics, and our themes are just like an overall umbrella. We've geared more towards a storyline as we grow, but when we just first started, we had like one theme. Well, when we first started, it was just called STAG. We didn't have a theme at all. And then as we kept growing, we started doing themes, and then we would make different rooms, but they would all be geared towards that theme. And now with our private shows and like moving forward, our vision is to, while we're listening to our guests and our victims that come through, and what we hear is that they want more of a story, and we're storytellers too, and usually our rooms are like a story in itself, if you will, but now we're trying to make it all cohesive. And so we've been getting a little bit better at that as the years go on, but we still have a lot of growth in that area.
So it's interesting to hear you talk about comfort zones, because I was reading that in Fear Experiment's kind of mission statement thing too, right, Matt? In the about page on your site, it says, we fence ourselves in, create a comfort zone because a comfort zone is safe, and because of this, we miss out on some of life's greatest opportunities.
Yes. Yeah, that's sort of the point for me, is to, like one of the things that appealed to me most was I've never been in a truly terrifying situation. And, oh, what is it, like the famous phrase that everything you seek lies on the other side of fear. I'm paraphrasing that, but I think that's very true. And putting yourself in a situation where you can genuinely feel afraid, but know ultimately that you are safe, is something that I would have looked forward to. Like when I started, I didn't even know this genre existed, and I'd heard about it, and I'm like, well, there's nothing close, I'll just start one. And I just think other people would enjoy doing the same, putting themselves in a situation where they sort of find out who they really are. Do they have the guts to get through things or not? And to do that in a safe and fun environment.
So how do you feel the like quote unquote taboo has played into that for your experience?
Well, taboo is sort of a tricky word because what's taboo to one is not taboo to another. Obviously, I mean, I think it's probably a fairly general thing for a lot of different people, a lot of, sexual themes in different things. One of my, our very first show, one of the rooms that we had, you entered the room and there was a naked man sitting in a chair watching scat porn. And then the patron came in and then the naked man would then dance with them and finish enjoying the scat porn, and then we made them watch while we fed them peanut butter. I assume that's kind of taboo, or maybe it's just freaking gross. I don't know. But, of course, sexual themes. Gosh. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what would be taboo. One, we had in our first show, again, sort of a moral dilemma where there was a woman that was chained up and she was going to be sacrificed, and the person was given the option. They were handed a gun and you either go try to save her, but you're risking your own death, or just shoot her and put her out of her misery. And just that moral dilemma of what are you going to do? You or her. And shockingly, about 75% of people shot her without hesitation, which was absolutely shocking to me, but was sort of that, I guess you would call that taboo.
Yeah, I imagine you've learned a great deal about the human condition on your end.
I did. I was rather disappointed at humanity.
Justin, I know that you've brought guns into your show and moral dilemmas in that vein as well, right?
Correct.
So what have you found in this question of what's taboo? You've been at this for a bit now. So what do you think is taboo, and what have your audiences found to be taboo?
I think Matt kind of hit it on the head. It's really different per person. I mean, we have people that the gun you mentioned, they would pick that up and they would, they wouldn't know how to hold it. And they'd be very uncomfortable, whereas other people would pick it up and play with it and throw it around, proverbially, but they had no issue with it. So, I mean, sometimes it was even a gun that was taboo. It's just so, it's so random per person. We've certainly touched on themes of violence, abuse, essentially taking advantage of people, emotional terrorism, that type of thing. A lot of that I think is taboo, but it's, as we move on in this genre, I'm kind of jumping around here, but as we move on in this genre, what's interesting was in 2016, what was taboo in this type of experience isn't quite so much anymore. So, the question kind of becomes like, what will be taboo tomorrow? It's kind of hard to say.
And Josh is the person here with the newest experience. I imagine that just having seen a little bit of your personal tastes in horror online, that the taboo isn't something you're shying away from either.
Oh no. I love challenging content, and so anytime I can try to kind of push on that. In terms of what's taboo to the audience, child murder has been very effective for us in terms of pushing the audience, and we've had people that's been one of the big ones that I think that we found that, boy, the emotional reaction to that is pretty intense. And so that for us was, I think, was the thing that I found was it was surprising that it was as taboo as it came across. We use themes of sexual assault pretty heavily, incest, things that really get people. But I was taken aback when, we had people really very strongly react to child murder when presented in a visceral way.
I will say that we pretty much pushed the envelope with our last private with the taboo themes. We had child sexual abuse, and I was even nervous to do it. However, it was a story that I wanted to tell. I honestly, going with what Joshua said with child murder, I have a hard time watching movies where a parent-child, like one of them dies. Being a mother myself, like it's just so hard for me to take that information in. And so that is like definitely a trigger for a lot of people, anything to do with a kid.
What you said there, that it's a story you wanted to tell, I think is an important thing that I'm hearing from all of you, is the stories that you're telling, the narratives, and challenging people and pushing them out of their comfort zone so that they learn something about humanity or themselves or connect to people in a different way. So just for any of you, how have you found the taboo working as something with a purpose in achieving whatever it is you want to achieve with your experience?
I know we use taboo topics, or what would be considered extreme, to begin the process of getting people to a vulnerable state. It's one of our first steps, as individuals are met with great violence in the beginning of our shows, and it begins the unpeeling of our audience and taking them down to a place where we can get that first scare in, or that first real questioning. Well, even am I in the right place? Because we often make our participants complicit to violence. And it begins the process of allowing us to get inside in a way that I think that they're not realizing. It's the beginning of immersion, is something that is as silly as just scaring you enough in the moment to begin the process of letting a participant just exist in our world with us.
I can speak on that. I feel like getting to experience a part of the darkness of our world that maybe you haven't experienced, or maybe you have. For example, addiction. Our show, I feel like we were trying to show people the horrors of addiction, and then also like just that it's real people, it's regular people, that there's this stigma to addiction and like what an addict is supposed to look like. And so just kind of showing like, hey, this is real people, happens to everybody, and kind of putting a face on it, if you will. And so just reducing stigma in regards to addiction, mental health, and things like that, and just talking about it. I think that starting a narrative and starting a conversation about taboo topics is important to ending stigma.
To jump on that, I think part of using taboo topics or controversial, whatever you want to call it, those are just part of the I think transgressiveness of the genre that probably attracted everybody in here to it. Maybe not just the ability to tell stories with those items in it, but to tell stories that couldn't be told without those items in it. I think that's where I definitely come from, is that all the stories that we make, I just can't tell them, or I shouldn't say we just can't tell them without those types of instances or subjects coming up, or at least being alluded to from time to time. And I think that's, as a story writer, I think that's where I'm coming from with those items.
So the stories you want to tell, that's integral to the plot. Those are elements that the stories could not be told without.
Right. So story's number one. If it involves taboo subjects, that's number two always for me.
And what about you, Matt? What do you see the overall purpose of the taboo? You were speaking specifically about sexual topics earlier. How has that played into the stories that you've been telling as part of the fear experiment?
Yeah, I think it's the taboo topics is where it gets into your head, where it becomes more of the psychological, which is, I believe, very, very important aspect of it. It shouldn't be just, physical scares or fear of being injured or whatever. It should really get into your head. Like we've utilized religion in the past, and will probably do so in the future as well, because I live in the Bible Belt. So here religion is one of those things that if you're not a good Christian, you just be quiet. And in our first show, they were worshipers of the deity Moloch, and we had a scene where the person had to reject Christ and embrace Moloch, and we had people that called safety on that. They just absolutely could not do it, even though it was for a show. We had people that I was surprised that I actually knew personally that would do it. But that was one of those things, and like, I'm not a religious man myself, but I know that, you know, truly deep religious people, that's a huge moral dilemma, whether it's a show or not, and that gets into their head psychologically.
You're actually not the first person I've heard say that, but I've heard from people, other experiences, that the one thing that they found people would not cross over and over again was a Bible desecration scene.
Yeah.
So you're definitely not the only one with that experience.
Yeah,
Joshua, you're not.
Yeah, yeah. We burned a Bible in our last show, and people's reaction was pretty intense.
What else do you all find, especially anything that may have been surprising to you? I mean, whether that's being surprised by just how many people did pick up the gun, or that being what Too Far ends up as.
I can also speak to what Matt was talking about, how he was disappointed in humanity, because when I think of myself as a participant going through an immersive experience, I'm playing a character, and I'm playing a badass character. I don't know if I can swear on here, but you know what I'm saying? I'd be like, yeah, give me that gun, I'll take care of it, you know? Like, I feel like I'm not playing myself, like I'm a part of your show, and I'm a character, and like, so I don't feel like I'd be a moral person while I'm in experience, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to speak on that for a second, because if I ever come to the fear experience and, you know, go to shooting people, if I'm supposed to, if that's what I'm supposed to do, I'm going to do that.
Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to play off what you're saying, is that it's, you know, any show I've ever gone to, I agree with Blayne. None of this is real to me at all. So if you give me a chance to shoot someone, I'm going to shoot someone, or whatever horrible thing you want, because this is the space I'm paying to do it. And especially, you know, if I don't know that's going to happen, I think a lot of people are like that. Like, some people, you know, will be there, and they'll really like take these moments and like sort filter them through their lives and who am I? And I think, you know, with Blayne, it's just like whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
where else do you get to do that?
Yeah, I think it's your playground to just be free and have fun and enjoy things that you can't do in real life.
Well, that's the definition of taboo, right? Is these are the things we can't do. These are the things we can't talk about. I mean, if you're going to throw any sort of what does that mean, which I think is something that ends up being different in the horror realm, and that maybe you might lose a sense of what is taboo to the general public. And that also changes over time. Justin, you were mentioning that you've seen that change during your time working on these experiences.
Yeah, I mean, just all the items mentioned now. You know, it's been the way we've seen immersive horror and extreme immersive horror grow since, you know, 2009 when Blackout started. You know, who are really the godfathers and kind of pioneered literally almost everything we're talking about. You know, there's been plenty of shows happen and plenty of themes, and I guess for the hardcore people that watch all the stuff they can watch, do all the shows they can do, yeah, and you know, that's not a judgment if you aren't a hardcore person. It's can be a very expensive hobby. You know, those people have seen a lot of the same things over and over and over again. So I think it'd be interesting to talk to someone that's pretty much done everything and say, what could we possibly do that would offend you? But, you know, when you offend someone, I shouldn't say, let me back that up. Not that the goal is to offend someone. But it's just kind of interesting because there's so many people have done so many shows that it's just, you know, what haven't they seen yet?
So in the last scene of the last show, we were actually lucky enough to get a show in 2020 in February, right before everything shut down. And the last scene was you were helping Angie. So like you go through her childhood and then she's an adult in the end, and you have to help her like get rid of a body. And the first step that you have to do is like cut their clothes off. And so there's like a person laying on the ground, like tied up and ball gagged and like with a hood on. And you have to cut off like their dress and their underwear, like so they're butt naked. And so the guest coming through has a pair of scissors and they have to cut the clothes off of this person. And the person is just crying, no, 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 don't do it. And so the guest or the victim is put in this spot of like almost shameful. Like, am I going to do this to this person? Like, this person's alive and crying for help. And so I heard a couple of my patrons that went through say that they felt shame. And I was like, whoa, I haven't created that emotion yet. And I was like thinking that's kind of a taboo thing to mix together, that like kind of will, like what Matt was talking about, and then also like the sexuality and women's body parts, you know.
So on the subject of women's body parts, I heard an interview with Justin where there was some discussion about nudity and the show that you did that had male nudity in it, and you spoke about how it was actually very important for you to subvert the expectations and the sort of idea of misogyny that comes with the genre sometimes. And so something that I've been thinking about since I listened to that was, what is the line between exploring the taboo and actually engaging in it? And how do you keep something a theme as opposed to something that has kind of crossed a line into a little bit more into reality? Now, I don't know if that's something any of you have reckoned with at all.
No penetration.
So that's
Yeah, I think that's I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Please go ahead.
We had in our last show, our ending scene, the person was in their underwear. They were tied down to a bed, and their legs were bound down to each corner, so legs spread open. And then towards the end of the scene, this sort of demon dream creature bursts up between their legs up through the bed. And initially, I wanted it to be sort of this, like you couldn't tell what it was, like painted black, clearly a nude female with a large strap on, basically. And then she slowly crawled up the person's body. And there was the realization as we were practicing it that those things are pretty hard to control. And there was that thought that if we accidentally bump something that shouldn't be touched, now we've just sexually assaulted a person. So our line is always, you can touch them anywhere, but never in a sexual area under any circumstances at any time. Which included, like, I've even gone to the point of, like, you know, because I've had people say that they felt like they were going to be kissed in scenes. And I've tossed that around, like, can we do that? And I'm thinking, no, that's, in my mind, that's also sexual assault, because that's non-consent. So, but it's a fine line.
Yeah, I think playing off Matt, I mean, really, the line is, well, it's strange because obviously the line is consent. I mean, anywhere in life, a show, it's consent, no matter where you are. The issue is, and I might be segueing into something a little bit different here, but I think the issue is, as creators, we do like a little bit of mystery to everything. I mean, especially me, I do not like to tell anybody anything that has happened or that is going to happen, and I think I'm really irritating that way. But to get consent, to try to explain someone something and then get consent, like, it's going to kind of be like this, but you have to get consent and you can't really tell them what's going to happen. You know, if you look at our website and the waiver, it's just a list of like 60 things that they're consenting to. And, you know, who knows, maybe all 60 happen to you. You know, it is a challenge to, I shouldn't say it's a challenge. Consent isn't a challenge, but crossing that line where that guest feels like they didn't agree to something, like if, say, you didn't list electricity anywhere and you even told them there's no electricity, then they encounter a scene where they get electrocuted. A, they're going to be pissed off. B, you're a liar, and they did not consent to that, and that's crossing a line.
Yeah.
If you told them there wasn't going to be there and then you thought it would be super scary to surprise them with it, that's not consent. That's actually terrible.
Yeah.
I think that's when you're crossing a line, is when you start doing those, basically lying to your audience.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important distinction, the line between lying to somebody and then challenging them and forcing them to think about things a little bit differently and encounter things that they maybe weren't prepared for, but that's not necessarily the same thing as lying or misleading them in any way.
Yeah, our Facebook clearly states like that we explore sexual scenes. Like we will make you uncomfortable, you will be touched. And so I feel like our waiver also clearly outlines that there will be sexuality and vulgar and you will be touched.
Yeah, because it's really about setting the expectation. I think that's like the most important thing, is that we can explore all these taboo themes as much as we want to, as long as we've set the expectation with the audience and that they're ready for it and that they understand what's going to happen, because you can get that consent, and as long as the audience trusts us, then we can, I mean, a lot of things become permissible that necessarily would not be. I mean, outside of the obvious that, you know, we're not gonna fuck anybody, you know, we're not gonna, you know, things like that, you know. And so I think that that's been one of the coolest things, was just setting those expectations and getting to see that what can be done once the expectation has been set.
So we've mentioned actions that might not be engaged in, particularly lying to people, but are there themes for any of you that you've thought before that this is something that I won't put in a narrative at any point? Maybe not, maybe anything is game at this point. Justin's smiling.
I'm smiling because I know my answer is going to be really obnoxious. So I'll just go. What? Yes, there are. I'm not going to say what I wouldn't do, and you already know that. But you know, I think it comes back to, we've had scenes where, you know, they might have been somewhat of an emotional, more sad response, and 90% of the time it's fine, and then that one person, it crosses the line for them. And then you start questioning, you know, I think when that happens with anybody, I think anybody with a heart that's empathetic goes, did we cross a line there? And then you rethink all of that. You know, usually you didn't, but it does affect you. So yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't found that line yet.
Yeah, like I've done a scene with bulimia, and it was in our addiction show, and we had a girl cry and leave in safety out in that scene, and I thought that was one of the more tame ones. But you know, there was a history there with that person, and I felt terrible. I was just like, oh my gosh, like I just felt so bad because I didn't know that. But you don't know what you don't know, right? So yeah.
I'm going to jump back in. Sorry. The line, all right. I think the line is taboo, offensive, whatever you want to say, without a purpose. That's my line. If you just want to shock someone, I mean, that, to me, that's worthless. To me, that's far, because you're just trying to show off. You're just trying to say, look what we can do in our show. I think that's where it gets a little too far, and especially if it's meant to degrade the audience member with no purpose. I think for me, that's a line, is there always has to be purpose behind every action and everything that happens in their show.
I think that, you know, and I'm thinking about it more and more, and I think what my taboo one is that for me, going too far is making fun of or poking at or torturing people over static physical features. I guess that's when I go, oh, that's too far. That's like, you know, like, it's just, it ends up being super cheap and dumb. And so to me, I guess there you go, there's my taboo. I want to make fun of people for what they love and things they can't change about themselves.
And it's not scary. I mean, you're right.
Yeah,
it's, you know,
boring.
it's cheap. It's cheap. It's easy. I mean, it's what's the point?
It's bullying.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to torture people, but I don't want to bully anybody. That's so like, I can't do that. I care too.
We've had a sorry. Yeah, we've had a bullying scene, but it was not specific to the person. It was very generic, and it fit the narrative of the show. So it wasn't specifically poking fun at the person and their characteristics themselves. We kept it very generic so that they didn't walk away feeling terrible about themselves. I think Justin absolutely hit it on the nose, that if it's done offensive and it doesn't further the plot, it doesn't further the story, it's just done just to be horrible, then that's over the line. I agree with that 100%.
Fantastic. Okay, next time we'll talk a little bit more about what happens when some of these themes, ideas might cross a line over into reality and how that affects people going forward. But let's just close out. Everybody say where anybody listening can find out more about your experience now that we've talked about all the ways that you're going to challenge them and offend them and make them feel things they weren't prepared for. How about you, Blayne?
So we have an Instagram, and our @ is STAG Haunt, and then our Facebook is STAG and Immersive Horror Experience. There we go.
You can find Miasma online at Miasma8. That's MIASMAATE.com. We are on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can find that if you look up, Miasma Horror, Miasma Haunted House, you'll find us. And if you find any of these guys, we're all connected somehow.
And you can find us on Instagram at black.heart.collective. It's the best place to find us.
And ours is probably just our website, just thefearexperiment.com. And we're also on Facebook.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.